Das sagt Schnorr Erinnerungen. What do you say, Doctor? Very well, Your Majesty. I accept the challenge. You will be held captive in your room until dawn.
Smile, you're on candy camera.
Oh my god, you're not going to keep this.
Oh, I did the last time I did this to someone who I regarded as a friend.
How long do they regard you as a friend after that?
They still do.
Yes. Getting to the end.
How would you define the difference between good Doctor Who and bad Doctor Who?
Let me think. Well, I can think of probably examples of what's good and bad Doctor Who, but can I?
Or put it another way.
Yeah.
Why is a Sylvester McCoy story bad,
Yeah.
and a Tom Baker story good? Is there something that makes a Tom Baker story a lot better than a Sylvester McCoy story? One or two things that make it, well, not even necessarily one or two, but
I think in the Tom Baker era, they actually valued the story more than in the Sylvester McCoy era. More in the McCoy times, they were going more, I think, for a general look and feel, rather than a good damn story, decent companions, a good acting from a good Doctor, and a very good supporting cast in the majority of stories. Technically, in terms of things like special effects, it wasn't necessarily brilliant, but the story still shone through. And really, in the McCoy era, they've gone for something that looks glossy the majority of the time, but falls flat on its face.
They've spent a lot of money on making it look. It's a bit like the Leisure Hive, because some House Stammers and Walker said in Doctor Who the Handbook, the Leisure Hive has all the look of something that is different to Graham Williams. Or in other words, they looked at the Leisure Hive and they said, if you just watched a Graham Williams story, you could tell this was a JNT story, because it had this sort of lavish, expensive look to it.
Well,
which is what in my book makes good JNT, because good JNT is early JNT. Good JNT is Logopolis, Castroval, the Keeper of Traken.
I agree there.
Bad JNT is Dragonfire, where you have what is not a bad story so much, and not so much a bad collection of ideas, but there's something I can't quite put my finger on. It was defined recently in a magazine article as the fact that Sylvester McCoy's performance is at best variable, or in other words, he seems to swing wildly if you study the character between a thoughtful and analytical man who's thinking through a problem and a sort of excitable person who at the slightest piece of information will go flying off at a tangent and do something he might not otherwise have done if he'd thought about it.
Yeah, well, going back to Dragonfire, I think visually it's pretty good, but I think it's childish. You get even the extremely corny cliffhanger, that sort of thing.
You mean where they open up the thing's head and find the thing inside? That's a cliffhanger.
No, the cliffhanger when the Doctor is hanging off a cliff.
Oh, well, that is corny.
That was appalling, and I don't think things like that even should be considered as having a place in Doctor Who. If you've got that sort of thing in Doctor Who, corny humour, then forget it, really.
I think humour in Doctor Who's at its best probably to inspired by what Tom Baker's been saying recently, especially on the Tom Baker years. Humour in Doctor Who's at its best when it's at its most offbeat and it's at its most surreal even. Like Brain and Morbius, where he turns up at the door, it's pouring with rain, and the first thing he says is, "We'd like to borrow a glass of water," which to me went past me the first few times I saw it, because the way Tom Baker says it, he says it as if it's like the most important thing in the world, and it's a sensible thing to say, because that's his sense of humour. He's sort of, if I say this in a sensible way, people will laugh. But the way I look at it is, if you say it in a sensible way, people won't laugh, because people view Tom Baker's Doctor as this sort of expert who knew what he was talking about. Even though he did say some strange things at times, like he turned up on the planet in Brain and Morbius and practically accused the Time Lords of sending him off on another mission when it wasn't them at all. It was just him not operating the TARDIS right that got him there.
Yeah, I like Tom Baker's portrayal of the Doctor in that respect, and the humour I think works best when it is meant to be, or at least it gives the appearance of being unintentional. It doesn't necessarily. It could be scripted as such, but
I have a feeling a lot of the humour wasn't necessarily put in at the writing stage.
quite possibly.
Or in other words, whatever Terence Dicks says, he didn't necessarily sit down and say, "I'm going to write a science fiction script and put a few jokes in."
Well, no.
Neither did necessarily Robert Holmes, when he was script editing it or whatever, say, "We're going to have humour in Doctor Who." I have a feeling, having watched Tom Baker and heard about Tom Baker's efforts to change scripts, that when he comes across a script, I mean, even a script like Medics, which annoyingly Tom Baker is always billed as Sue Johnson and Tom Baker, and so you think, oh, there's going to be a lot of Tom Baker, but there isn't.
Yeah.
Even when the lines are like really minimalist, I have a feeling that Tom's looked at the script and said, now what can I change here so it's the character that I'd want to play, not the character they want to see me as.
Well, I didn't see any of the second series of Ben. Well, the third series of Benedict, because they did go for a revamp from the second series. From what I saw of the second series, I think Tom Baker did not play the character of, what was it, Professor Jeffrey Hoyt, but Tom Baker as Tom Baker. There really wasn't much difference. I've met Tom Baker on one occasion, and I couldn't really see any difference whatsoever between Tom Baker when I saw him at Mommy and Tom Baker when I've seen him in Medics. In fact, he was wearing the same suit, and that's the suit he's been going around with for a damn long time.
Have you noticed he's only got one suit for fan events?
Well, that medic suit was one that he allegedly borrowed from the set, and for some reason or other has forgotten to give back.